the individual level, which can come across overtly, but more times covertly, more subtle. And then the deeper issue, or what could be even the worst issue, is the issue of implicit structural bias within inside the American Muslim community. And then bi'idhnillahi ta'ala will give some suggested remedies from the Quran and the Sunnah al-Nabawiyyah. So firstly, let us have no doubt about it that racism in any form is satanic. Racism is satanic, and racism is one of the first 3 sins that took place in the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. Envy, racism or tribalism, these were ta'assub, and arrogance. And these all played themselves out in one particular character mentioned in the Quran. Iblis, la'natullahi alayhi. Iblis, who then became a shaitan. When he said in the Quran, and as we know that Allah Azza wa Jal commanded the malaika and all who were in their company to make sujood to Adam, and all of them made sujood illa Iblis. And what did he say? قَالَ أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْهُ خَلَقْتَنِي مِنْ نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِنْ طِينٍ. He said, I'm better than him, because you, Allah, made me of fire, but you made him of the dirt. So he looked at something in himself that he had no control over. That he was made of fire, he had absolutely no control over that, just as Iblis had no control that Adam was made from the dirt. Just as we have no control of whether we were born with light skin or dark skin, or hair is jad or hair is straight. We have no control over that. It's all from the decree of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So something that he had no ownership in implementing himself, he took pride in that and made a judgment that he thought he was better, not looking at the inside, because he couldn't see the inside, looking at something outside that was out of his control. And subhanAllah, we know that everything living, Allah Azza wa Jal says, is created from ma, water, right? Human beings are made of 75% water. Iblis, in his arrogance, being made of fire, free of smoke, he didn't even realize that Adam that he looked at, that he thought was of a lesser substance because he was made of mud, actually the inside of Adam was water, and we know that water puts out fire. But he's ignorant, right? So racism is satanic. And it is the scheme of shaitan to try to separate the human family, and all of the negative attributes of Iblis that he has, he tries to spread them amongst human beings. And this is why I say the roots of racism, whether we realize it or not, is inspired and comes from the devil himself, from the Satan himself. This is the first problem that all human beings have to deal with. The second issue that we Muslims have to deal with is the issue of colonialization and white supremacy, and how that affects and plays itself out amongst American Muslims. Something happened to the psyche of the Muslim mind. Muslim lands were colonized by different European forces, be it was the Arab or in Southwest Asia, like in Indonesia, Malaysia, South Asia, African countries. Muslims were colonialized by Europeans, British, French, Dutch, different groups. And when European people colonialized the lands, one of the first things they did was try to undo the educational system. And then secondly, through their arts and their culture, and then basically media, centered whiteness, and in the minds of many people of color who were colonialized, suddenly began to center whiteness as the standard of civilization, of the standard of intellectualism, and the standard of beauty. This is why in so many Muslim countries is a multi-billion-dollar business of skin bleach cream, like Fair and Lovely, for instance. How you have Asian women whose eyes are a little more slanted, how people go to plastic surgeons to try to get their eyes more round, look more like Europeans. Billions of dollars are spent. How in our community at times, and not just when we talk about black people, in the same ethnic group, if there are three sisters, and one is significantly darker than the other two, then sometimes the darker sister can get looked over for potential for marriage for the lighter sisters. This happens right in our community amongst African people, Arabs, Asians. This is a byproduct of colonialization, and then on top of it, the United States of America was established upon the principle of white supremacy. So we have Martin Luther King Jr. Day tomorrow, right? America was established upon the genocide of the indigenous people of this land and over 300 years of slavery of African people and another 100 years of overt, legalized anti-black racism. Now it's just more subtle and covert. Colorblind laws with non-colorblind implementation. So we as American Muslims have been influenced by the broader culture, the broader society of what we're taught in books, what we see in the media, and then when people immigrate to the United States of America, they come here for the American dream. And the American dream, for most people, is seen to make a good living. They have a white house and a white picket fence in suburbia, which is normally owned by white people. And the antithesis of whiteness in America is blackness. So subconsciously, sometimes Muslim people, subconsciously, and again, when we talk about racism, all racism does not have to be with malicious intention. Okay? That's why there's a thing called implicit bias. Sometimes we don't even know the depth of how we've been influenced, but we act upon these things. And this is why sometimes for social mobility, sometimes subconsciously we can separate ourselves from blackness to look more safe or more accommodating, to be accepted by, or to fit into whiteness, which is synonymous with Americanness. I'll give you, just to double click on this, I spoke at an event at the University of Michigan in Dearborn, and I heard this one sister one time, she was talking and I was next there and she was saying, oh yeah, Bilal, Brother Bilal was Lebanese, by the way, he wasn't like Bilal Habashi. Bilal El-Libnani, young guy in Dearborn. So yeah, Bilal, he had his nikah and he married an American girl. So I asked his sister, I said, sister, where were you born? She said, I was born in Detroit. I said, so you're American, right? She's like, yeah. And she said, well, you know what I mean. I said, yeah, when you say American, you mean white folks too. When you say American, you don't think of me, right? So Americanness, when people say, oh, that American girl, that American guy, it means white people. To many of us, right? So we even look at ourselves almost as being second-class Americans unconsciously, because of Americanness is whiteness. So all of this affects and can influence our social interactions, how we look at black people in general, and how we deal with black people in the Muslim community. And then the third thing I want to mention is that there are different shades of black in the black American community. You have people who are immigrants from Muslim countries, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Sudan, Somalia. And then you have native-born African Americans. And even sometimes amongst people who all look black and melanin, there can be a type of hierarchy or superiority. So, well, I'm from this country, I'm not like those people. I'm not like those black people, those African Americans. I'm Habashi, I'm not like them. So that's even another layer that plays itself in the American Muslim community. It plays itself out on an individual level, overtly, plays itself out in microaggressions, plays itself out in who parents allow their sons or daughters to marry, and who they will have a fit if they try to bring someone home who looks differently, or especially if they're black. And the leadership of many American Muslim organizations, the major American Muslim organizations. Okay, so these are real problems that exist in our community. Now, before I give some examples of how Rasul Adam dealt with this, I also want to make one other point. Just because you haven't seen something doesn't mean it's not real. I've heard this many times before too. Oh, we don't have this issue in our community. Or don't you think you're exaggerating? Just because you are privileged to not have seen it or experienced it because you're not black does not take away the reality of anti-black racism and how Muslims who are black have received trauma in this community. And I'm going to deal with the trauma part too, because I have to give some spiritual advice to Muslims who are black. Because anytime a group of people suffer trauma, this can affect our behaviors, right? It can cause certain reactions, and some of those can be unhealthy. And I'm going to talk about the Sheikh Hamza Yusuf issue at RS, because there's some unhealthy reactions regarding that. There were some healthy reactions and some unhealthy reactions. And good God, we need to stop debating community issues and thinking that we're going to work things out or take time to have vendettas against people on Facebook and Twitter, for God's sake. Facebook has become a toxic venue in many times for us discussing community issues. Now, Rasul Adam sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he was very specific in dealing with the issue of racism in the community, explicitly, and also did things to empower Muslims who were black. He met things straight on. Now keep in mind about how we should deal with things in our community. One of the best examples of this, and I'm sure all of you have heard this hadith, that is sahih. There were two companions, and one of them ended up getting upset and had beef with the other. Actually, in modern day terms, both of them would have been considered black, but one of them was Arab and one of them was not. Because you know, blackness and Arabness are not mutually exclusive. There were many black Arabs back then, just as there are black Arabs from Sudan now. Arabness just means that you have a paternal lineage, that your father's an Arab, and that you speak the Arabic language. That's what an Arab is, right? There are white-looking Arabs and there are black Arabs, just as there were black Arabs at the time of Sahaba. But these two companions were Abu Dhar al-Ghafari. Kana Abu Dhar Adam Tawilan is how he's described. Abu Dhar was from Bani Ghafar. He's described as dark brown and tall. Like Adam, like al-Adim al-Ard, like the color of topsoil. That's what the word Adam means in classical Arabic, right? Like probably slightly darker than myself. That's how Abu Dhar al-Ghafari was described. He got upset at Bilal ibn Rabah. And he said to Bilal, Ya ibn Sauda, oh, you son of a black girl. The statement was true. Bilal's mother was a black woman, but she had been Amma. She had been a slave girl, Hamama, wallahu anha, whereas Abu Dhar's mother was Arab and she was a free woman. So he insulted his brother, saying, oh, you son of a black lady. Abu Dhar, Bilal became very saddened by this. Even though the statement was true, it was said in a way that tried to demean or put him down as if he wasn't as good. Bilal went to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and told him what happened. Also, Adam alayhi salam told Abu Dhar that you are a man that has a jahiliyyah in you still. You are a man that has some of the pre-Islamic age in you, because the Arabs were into al-Asabiyya. They were into tribalism and racism. This is one of the three characteristics of Arab society prior to Arabs coming into Islam. You have some of the pre-Islam in you still, Abu Dhar. This hadith is narrated through 7 different rijal. Okay? Which means that Rasulullah publicly corrected Abu Dhar for the public insult that Abu Dhar did to Bilal. There's at least 7 witnesses to this besides Rasulullah, Bilal, and Abu Dhar. This is a very important point that many people miss in the hadith. 7 rijal, 7 men. Abu Dhar, once his consciousness was raised, he went to Bilal and laid down on the ground and told Bilal to take his foot, to step on his face and neck to atone. But Bilal didn't do that. And we know that in the custom of the Arab, from back then to now, what's the lowest point that someone could be beneath someone's foot? So Rasul Adam didn't let that fester. He stood up and corrected Abu Dhar, not just because what Abu Dhar said was wrong, but to protect the honor and the dignity of Bilal. To make Bilal feel that he was protected and he was welcome in the Muslim community. It just wasn't pulling him aside and doing some private nasiha to Abu Dhar. It was a public disrespect, it was public racism, and it had to be corrected publicly. There's a time for pulling people to the side and correcting them, but when there's a public injustice done, that needs to be addressed publicly. It's not just something to pull someone aside. But of course, we look at each circumstance as it is. So Rasulullah dealt with this issue, and he did the public correction. Now this is the Sahaba, brothers and sisters in Islam. We're not talking about disbelievers. And this is the best generation. So we're not post-racial. The Sahaba still had to deal with their issues. The Tabi'een still had to deal with their issues. If the best 2 generations had to deal with the issues, how far away are we removed in our practice and our spiritual understanding of practicing Islam? We're nowhere close to them. We're nowhere close to them. So we can't be in denial about this issue. Just like we're not post-namima and post-khiba, right? We're not post-gossiping and backbiting either, right? We're not post-racial. We have these issues. Now, let me talk about the issue of trauma. How anti-black racism can cause trauma. There was a Sahabi named Sa'd al-Aswad. He's from Bani Sulaym. He was a black companion. Kana qasiran aswad, that's how he's described. He's short and black. This man, Rasulullah saw this Sahabi. This is narrated in Tanwir al-Ghabish by Ibn Jawzi, if you want to see the reference. And there's other books that Ibn Jawzi references for this. This man was alone one day looking sad. And Rasulullah asked him, what was the question? This man asked a very difficult question to our beloved Prophet ﷺ. He said, can a man like me, of my low status, enter into paradise? Sahabi. He asked the Prophet ﷺ, could he enter to Al-Jannah? This short black companion. And Rasulullah told him, yeah, of course. This is Sahabi. And he asked him, why did he ask the question? He said, because none of the people of Medina would allow him to marry their daughter. This upright Sahabi, none of the people of Medina would allow their daughter to marry him, this short black companion. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-azim. And this happened to Julaybib, and Bilal had problems getting married at one time too before he married Hala, the sister of Abdurrahman ibn Auf. There were several companions who were black who had problems getting married. So he told him, go to the house of Amr bin Wahab and say you're going there for marriage. Amr al-Ansari, he knocks on the door. And he asked to marry. He said, well, why are you coming to the house? Sa'ad says, Rasulullah came simply to your house for marriage for your daughter. Amr replied, don't you know our status? Don't you see how beautiful my daughter is? No. No. The girl then overheard what was going on, and she wanted to know, why did Sa'ad come to the house? The father told the reason why. She told her father, how can I turn down a marriage proposal that came through Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she ended up marrying that man. Later on, after they got married, Sa'ad went to a ghazwa, and he became a martyr. SubhanAllah, that black companion who felt marginalized in the community, who questioned whether he could enter paradise, became a shaheed. And we know that shaheed or shuhada are at the highest level of Jannah. SubhanAllah, stories of G. So my point is that trauma of racism can affect people's iman. Not only affect whether they feel a part of the Muslim community, it can even get people who are black to question if even they are even good enough Muslims. Even if they're worthy of Allah's blessing. It's called internalized oppression. To look at another group of people and start to view yourself through the lens of people who put you down. It's called internalized oppression. So I say that this is a real issue. Now quickly, some remedies. Number one, we as a Muslim community need to have intentional suhbah. We need to go out of our way and to sit with other Muslims who are not like us or from our ethnic group. This is part of what the Sahaba did, to work through their issues. This is what the Sahaba did. The brotherhood and sisterhood compact that Rasulullah did between Muhajirin and the Ansar. The black companions, the Sahaba, they all were paired off with other Sahaba who were Arab and who weren't black. And those who have privilege are the ones that the onus is on to reach out and to seek out those people who have been marginalized. It is not the primary duty of those who feel marginalized and feel they've been pushed out of the community to go to the privileged group to beg for acceptance. It is the people who are in a position of privilege who are the ones who are supposed to go to seek out those who feel marginalized or those who are feeling really oppressed. This is one thing. Two, we need to decolonize our minds through education in general. Decolonization. We need to, and it's not about putting white people down, because we know that there's no virtue of Arab over non-Arab, nor non-Arab over Arab, or black over white, or white over black. But it is to say that we need to educate ourselves about our cultures and other people's cultures to get rid of this implicit bias, this aspirational whiteness that a lot of us have. SubhanAllah, Sister Linda talked about it yesterday. Sometimes how some of our Muslim organizations will actually show more deference and try to bend over backwards for non-Muslims who are white than even showing that deference towards our own community. We don't even give the same respect to ourselves. And then we have all these gimmicks to be accepted, as if wearing American flag hijabs and kufis is somehow going to make us look more American and more accepted to white folks. That doesn't work. That doesn't work anyway. Cut it out. The other step, brothers and sisters in Islam, is that when you see an injustice or you see racism going on in the community, just don't say, oh, that's messed up, astaghfirullah. We need people who are going to have real allyship to step up and to protect the rights and to stand up for those who feel marginalized and discriminated in our community. The next point is, look at your boards of your organizations and who's coming. 1/3 of the American Muslim community is black, either people who are native-born African Americans or who are immigrants from Africa. If your organization or your masajid have people who come in there are praying and none of the leadership reflects that, there's a problem. There's a problem. Actually, there's a serious problem. There's no way the American Muslim community is going to advance itself in a society in a healthy way with not factoring in the ideas and the sensitivities of the people who lived here for 400 years battling white supremacy. There's no way. That you'll do. No. And most of our major Muslim organizations do not properly reflect on its board or staff the demographic reality of the community. I work for CARE. CARE reflects it more than the other organizations, and CARE doesn't even reflect it properly. See, I can say that, right? You have to speak the truth about yourself and your own group. And the last thing is, for Muslims who are black, I don't know if you have ever heard this term. It's called being punch drunk. How many of you have heard this term called being punch drunk? Only a few of you. Okay, I'll explain it. When someone's boxed for a long time, the term called punch drunk, you know, when a round starts, there's a ring of a bell. Ding! And the boxer comes out and starts fighting. When a boxer's fought for a real long time and get hit upside their head a lot of times, when they retire, they can hear a sound that reminds them of the ring of the bell, and their body will flinch up. They'll get in the boxing pose, sometimes even swing. This is called being punch drunk. So if you're black in America, there's no doubt that you have been beat up by systemic racism in the broader American society, and you probably experienced anti-black racism. But we have to take a step back sometimes, right? Because sometimes we can hear something or see something that we think that we're being attacked, and we put our dukes up and start swinging when no one is intentionally trying to beat us up. We have to be very careful about that. Right? Unless someone has a track record of doing something over and over and over again that's bigoted or racist, we are supposed to, according to the saying, we're supposed to give, and this is not an authentic hadith, this is a saying by one of the Prophet's descendants, named Ja'far Sadiq. We're supposed to give people 70 udhr, 70 excuses. This is part of our deen. We have to work hard to make sure that although people may do things that offend us, that we try to give them the benefit of the doubt and to pull them aside or talk to them first. This is part of the Karamul Akhlaq that is said in Surah Al-A'raf, the 199th ayah. Khudul Asr, wa'mur bil-'urf, wa'adil 'alal-jahilin. 3 commands. Be generous when it comes to pardoning people. Take the pardoning. Give people the benefit of the doubt first. Then, what will be earth? Tell them what is good and what is right, what is mahroof. And then if they still keep acting ignorant, stay away from them. Avoid the ignoramuses. This is the prescription in the Quran of our adab. So yeah, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf said some things that were insensitive, that were wrong. Calling him a white supremacist racist, that's not the proper response. That's not the proper response, even though he said some things that were insensitive. Because some people online, there were two extremes with that issue. Some people defended him to the hilt even when he apologized. Right? He actually gave me a call personally and explained to me what was going on. I gave him some advice, right? Then some other people, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, he shouldn't even be a leader in the Muslim community. He's a racist white man, a white supremacist. As if the 30 years of work he's done for the community, working to establish the institution, all the dawah, all of the durus he's done, meant absolutely nothing. That's extremism. Black people, black Muslims. I'm telling you, that's an extreme position. And then, subhanAllah, I even saw some Daisis and Arabs who are Muslims who are acting more angry for black people than black people ourselves. That's ajib too. It's strange. Anyway, this is my advice to you brothers and sisters, man. Anti-black racism is a reality in our community. We need to tackle it. We need to give it proper attention. And know and understand that we will not defeat Islamophobia in America if we don't work on defeating racism amongst ourselves as a community. اتقوا الناس بالبر وتنصرون أنفسكم وأنتم تتلون الكتاب أفلا تعقلون. Quran says, do you call people towards piety but forget it for yourselves? Yet you recite the book. Don't you have any intelligence? Let us be intelligent people, brothers and sisters in Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.